Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Heartwell Dev stream, the live stream series where we continue to develop this adorable Souls-like action RPG with platform mechanics and branching narrative. If you find these dev streams interesting or helpful, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click that bell button to stay notified. Now, when we previously left off, we were working on some more of the window resizing rework, and that's what we'll be continuing to work on tonight. So that's why we again see the green window here as a representation of what the size of the window will be when everything is all reworked. So, without further ado, let's throw on some music, and let's get ready to go looking for how we're going to need to adjust the melee stat menu buttons. Okay, so start with the melee stat menu buttons. Melee stat buttons. I think that's there's this object right here. Hey, we did stat button selected last stream. Yeah. Okay, so basically right now, chat, we're going basically objects by objects. That's part of the stat menu, because there are quite a number of objects. So to give you an idea of just how complicated our stat menu is, there's objects that represent the various buttons you can press when you're leveling up the stat menu. There's UI and bars to represent how much progress you've made towards specific stats. So that's where we'll be picking up from tonight. Oh, I see a position needs adjustment, and that is the stat is the manifest stat book is active is on. All right. So, well, I think I brought up line 435 before. Here it is quite important. Oh, sorry, not 435, 415. Or possibly not. Either way, it's a similar kind of thing with this. Because it's a linear interpolation, we have to do it by the same amount. We'll use this as a baseline for us to reference. In line 415. There are sections of code. All right, the code and objects. Let's see. There's that, buttons, etc. That's our Y coordinates that need to be adjusted. As you can see, like on this one line alone has a lot of things that are being set. So I go through this line very, very carefully in order to make the proper adjustments. Alrighty. 475 of that. Change 95 to 50. 223 and 128. $223 becomes 163. And 128 becomes 83. Very good. 311 and 128. Okay. Now, for those who are wondering why I'm typing this all out rather than doing this after the fact, it's to make it easier on myself later when I'm going back through programming, you know, the rework itself. Yes, this stuff is not, the thing I found, especially when programming large amounts of code, is that it's really the simple algebra that you can get wrong so quickly, because it's, especially when there's a lot of formulas you have to type in, it's very easy to get confused. Just when you're like looking at a lot of numbers for a long period of time. So I find taking things nice and slow like this is actually a good way to make sure you're not making mistakes with simple algebraic mistakes that end up messing up your code. All right, now let's check over here. All right, 238 and 161. $238 to 158, all good. And from there, we shall continue. Forward. 161. To 116. Hmm. 326. We shall make these adjustments. Oh, I forgot to mention, for those who are interested in like what's near term being worked on for Heartwell besides the screen size rework, there's actually a new channel in the in our Discord server called the Heartwell Roadmap channel, and that's a channel where I go into a bit more detail about the various things I'm either changing or adding to Heartwell in the near future. And a lot of these things are stuff that would actually end up getting patched into the demo. For example, I mentioned last stream a desire to rework agility so that it would increase the stamina regen rate rather than decreasing the amount of stamina it costs to dash, jump, and sprint. I go into a bit more detail about that on in the Heartwell Roadmap channel, as well as other things I'm considering. Another thing that I bring up on the Heartwell Roadmap channel, it's a very minor thing, but it can have a big impact for quality of life reason, is adding some kind of UI that basically lets you know whether or not you have enough XP to level up your player stat or your currently equipped melee or ranged weapon without actually opening the manifest. And what that would do is it essentially you'd no longer have that situation like I find myself doing all the time in like Dark Souls or Elden Ring, where it's like maybe it's more a dungeon, I'm just constantly checking back like, okay, do I have enough runes to level up? Do I have enough XP to level up? Things like that. And it's like just a simple UI change can get rid of that really annoying thing. so that way you're not constantly like open the menu constantly to chat. You're like, oh, it's good to go. I can go level up now. I don't have to constantly be opening and closing the menu to find that out. All right, so 326 became that. We have 161. Now I have 407 and 104. 407 to 327. I'll change 104. To 59. Alright. Alright. I'm not sure why that's coming up. Alright, let's see here. I'm gonna try and take care of something, chat. Be right back. Alright, sorry about that, chat. Let's get back to programming. 427, 104. 477, 104. Alright, just these are the weapon selection panels. Okay, this goes through 97. All right, that's looking good. Nice. Okay. Alright, let me check something again real quick. Sorry about this, chat. Alright, chat, welcome back. As I like to tend to do when I'm making edits like this, I do tend to take screenshots just to remind myself of what I'm adjusting. So let's take a quick screenshot of this. We can add that down here. So that's just a nice little visual reminder for us. Up next, let's see what needs editing. Okay, that's tied to the menu object, so that doesn't need editing. Must check everything. Okay, that's good. E minus 3 times that minus 4. So that's just checking save file bias for amounts invested, so that's not applicable. Yeah, if you're wondering why the equation looks like that, chat, it's because the animations directions in Fusion 2.5, it's 32 directions around like a circle, and they're given values of 0 to 31 to determine a direction. So this provides a way for me to determine which animation direction it should be facing, so I can have one object represent multiple different button configurations automatically. And that's what all of these equations are for. That looks good. We'll go over to line 783. Okay, so I'm seeing some numbers here. Let's just double check to see if 783 was already written down or not, because we might have. Yep, I believe this was brought up before, so that line's covered already. Good. Okay. 798. Oh, I think some of these might not have been there. Let's check. Oh, 798 is not popping up. All right, this is our jam, chat. Let us continue. Yeah, so I think the reason this one never came up is because it's tied directly to the melee button selected, so this is brand new for us in terms of editing. We'll continue from there. All right, so from what I'm seeing, this code is just for adjusting what the stat button selected value is. So the actual programming on the line itself. So programming here so the melee stat buttons aren't affected, but the code on like the actual line over here is affected. Let's make those adjustments. Yeah. Okay. So in lines, I'm going to say 798 through 811. On the left, where y coordinates need to be adjusted. Let's make those adjustments. Hmm. Okay. $228 and $128, we have those, ironically, but $148 we don't have. So 148 to 103. Then we'll change 167. To 122. Yeah, that adds up. Okay. From there, 228 becomes 272. Let's change that. So 272 minus 80, 192. $228, 128, 148. Okay, let's see, 7. Oh, 316, that's new. $316 will be adjusted to 236. Alrighty. Finally, 360. We adjusted to 280. Alright, cool. So that's that section for now. There may be more as we're going through the other buttons. I'm not seeing some of the lines of code here. Well, since we're focusing on this area, I think it's worth it to actually look at it specifically. So let's uncheck that and just take a scroll through. Ah. Just to see if there's any like values we missed it. Sorry, any values we missed, not missed it. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Very, very good. Very, very good. $316, $360, $128, $147. Okay. Making sense so far. Okay. Now, let's continue. Alright, that's that section. Stat button selected, melee weapon button. Okay, did we check lines 832 yet? Because I think we might have, but let's find out. 832. Yep, we did. Yeah, okay. That's all there. Next we have the mouse glitch check melee weapon stats. Right, that line looks fine. 845. Looks fine. Looks fine. Dope. Yeah, right now, chat. I'm trying to take my time on looking through these equations to make sure I'm not missing any like X or Y coordinates. So that's ultimately what's going to be affected by the rework. Okay, there we go. Alright, so this section looks fine. Yeah, line 853 looks fine, 855 looks fine. Good. Now I see some coordinates there, but I think we might have gotten that one already. 870. Yep. 870 is yeah, 870's been investigated. Oh wow, we're at the bottom already. Okay, so I'm gonna 877 to 879. I'm gonna guess we checked these already. Yeah, this feels familiar. Let's check. Yep, we checked them already. All right. That means we've accomplished melee stat buttons 1 object. Jeez, now we repeat the process for the melee stat buttons 2 object. Let's check what we need to do. Yeah, this is a pro tip for anyone who's using Doodle documents for the first time. You notice how I'm using different headings up here? The reason for that is because of the outline feature. So the way headings work is they kind of apply almost like a subheading like feature in the outline. It makes it much easier to jump around. So you'll notice, for example, this is the start of the changes for melee stat buttons, but let's say I want to go back to the manifest stat book object. I'll just click on this, and it sends me right up there. And now I'm back. So I find it very helpful, especially if I know I'm going to be writing a document that can get quite large. It can be very useful to apply these headings intentionally so that it's much faster to reach specific sections of the document. I mean, we're already at 89 pages in this document. Okay. So going for melee step buttons 2 objects. I believe that's the one that's next. Yep. Now you might be asking yourself, Antomicx, why didn't you earlier decide to make these objects the same thing? Well, the reason for that is because if we look at the, let's pull up the menu here and pause the music for a second. So the reason why these are separate objects, it has everything to do with exponential numbers. So essentially, if you think of each button as a true-false statement, or like a bit in programming terms, a bit can be either a 0 or a 1, and it represents a multiple of 2. So like, for here, there's each button only has 2 states. Either it's present or it's not present. So on or off, basically. So here, if this object was only 1 button, it would have 2 states. If it's 2 buttons, there's 4 states, because 2 times 2 is 4. 3 buttons is 8 states, just 2 to the 3rd power is 8. And then, of course, 2 to the 4th power is 16. Now I'd say, okay, 16, that sounds pretty manageable, but here's the problem. If I were to try and include all the buttons in the same object, we would end up with 2 to the 8th. And 2 to the 8th is... Let me get out a calculator for this, it's a little bit larger. Yeah, 2 to the 8th is 256. Which would mean I would essentially have to create like 8 groups of different combinations of buttons, which would be very, 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 very tedious compared to creating just 2 sets. Sorry, not 2 sets. 2 groups of 16. Animations, each which equals 32 animations in total as opposed to 256. Makes it much more manageable to draw and program. So, the reasoning behind why that was done. Checking everything. We've already done these. We already did line 415 because I know we just affected that one. Oh, well, actually, no, that's related to the set menu object, so that's fine. Okay. That's fine too. Alrighty. Very good. Very good. It's all making sense. Okay. Yeah, it's affecting animation direction. Oh yeah, because those are groups of animations. Yeah. Okay. So that all makes sense. Very good. Up next, we're going to look through this section of code just to see if we can find what needs to be adjusted for our screen size rework. Our ultimate goal is to move the entire manifest stat menu so they'll be centered in our smaller window size. And that's why I've involved some adjustments. Hello, Viso7. Thank you for dropping by. How's it going? And the Irish guy, thanks for dropping by. How's it going, guys? So we're resizing the screen today. So, well, not resizing the screen. We're working on the screen resize rework. So as with the last couple of streams, we're basically going line by line, object by object at this point for the manifest stat menu to identify what values need to be changed for our screen size rework. And Brad, it's been a process, as you can see, chat. We have almost 10 pages. Well, actually more than 10 pages of notes here just for things that need to be changed in order to start implementing this rework for the screen resizing. But it's important work because in the long run, making the window smaller, well, will allow us to then resize it to a higher magnification on most computer monitors, and that'll make everything more readable. Everything will be a lot more visible. It'll all be a very good change. It's just in order to make that change happen, we're going to have to make this. Is this thing going to support multiple aspect ratios? Great question. So the way Fusion 2.5 works, unfortunately, it's not like... Let me see if I can explain this in an effective way. So Fusion 2.5 is very bad at like screen resizing because it uses it doesn't really understand how to stretch out graphics because it uses only raster graphics. That doesn't understand how to like resize that. So I'll give you as an example. So right now I have the window open. I obviously can't resize this as it is. If I did try to give it the option, it would just cause screen tearing. So when you're asking the question, is it going to support multiple aspect ratios? So the reason we're selecting this smaller window is because this smaller window size, when multiplied by 2, I believe would fit on most computer monitors. But if you were to say, take a computer monitor that's like, I don't know, somewhere in like the 1280 by something range and compare it to like a 2100 by something range, the actual size of the game window would be the same on both monitors. It's just the monitor with more screen space would have like a larger outline around the game, because that's unfortunately the best Fusion 2.5 can do without causing like weird screen tearing. So my answer is yes, but not quite in the way that most games handle it. Because most games would be a situation of, oh, I press a button, it resizes to the current aspect ratio, everything's great. But here though, it's, you know, we're obviously aiming for 16:9 aspect ratio because that's what most computers are nowadays, and that's where we're going. But yeah, hope that answers your question, the Irish guy. Alrighty. And speaking of answering questions, we need to identify all the spots that need adjustments. So we got all this section here, which you've looked at previously. 783 we looked at previously. And what's so satisfying about this chat is as we continue to make more progress on like identifying specific things that need rework, I'm finding more and more that we're encountering lines of code that we've actually already checked. So it feels like kind of almost feeling a sense of momentum building as we're identifying more and more of what we've done in the past. It's not being excited because when the moment comes that we finally checked through all of our frames here, then we'll truly be able to move into the actual programming phase of the rework, and that'll be very exciting because that's when we'll finally start to see whether or not everything we've been playing works or if we need to make some more adjustments. But it's better to plan a lot now so that we have fewer adjustments to make later than trying to do it all at once. And with that, if for those wondering why I'm not writing anything for these, it's just we've just recently checked these lines. I believe we checked line 870, but this is why we have the find function. Alright, so we have 870, that's been covered in our notes. I'll also mention, chat, outside of stream, I actually made some decent progress with adjusting some sections of level design that had like diagonal jumps where you're increasing in elevation that were kind of confusing for players. So I identified, I want to say like 12 or 14 different locations where something like that existed in the previous level design, and I've like moved the positions of platforms, at least in the tile map editor. I still have to move them in Fusion to actually have the full changes take effect. But still, that's something I'll be considering in my level design going forward, is trying to avoid those kinds of diagonal jumps that can be a bit jarring. Well, not diagonal jumps at the same elevation. I think that's fine, but do you ever plan to update the demo? Yes, I do. In fact, I would say like either all or most of the things currently listed in the Heartwell roadmap are stuff that would be added to the demo in subsequent updates. So right now, Heartwell is very much in the phase of, I've created the demo, but it's clear that there's quite a bit of work to do to get Heartwell in like a solid foundation, so to speak, before I start going to really develop what's beyond the demo. So for now, it's like a lot of the changes I'm trying to make. So whether it's reworking agility, adjusting the level design, the screen size rework like this, even some addition, like the log that I'm eventually going to develop, like a new tab in the manifest, all that would be stuff that would be added into the Heartwell demo via various patches. So when will those patches come out? Unfortunately, I don't have a rough timeline for that. I just know it's going to be as soon as I have updates to incorporate, essentially. And then once I feel like once the demo reaches a point where a lot of that stuff in the Heartwell roadmap channel is implemented and it's available in the demo, at that point then I'd be moving to stuff that would be more beyond the Heartwell demo. So things that would be outside of Mardoff Well, you know, new enemy types, new boss fights, things like that. So we have line 870, 870, 870, 879. All right. Looks like melee stat buttons too actually didn't have anything new, so that's actually quite, that's very good. That means we can move forward. I'll say note, this object did not include any additional changes compared to the changes listed under the melee stat buttons one object above. Okay. Onward. So we need to check the, I think now we're in the ranged stat buttons, one objects. And if these are anything like the melees, there might not be that much to change. But still, we should do our due diligence and double check. Oh, I'm seeing something. Okay, so we checked these already, so now we just need to do the same for the ranged stat buttons. What have we here? Okay, so that's just the experience equation, so that looks good. Well, I have increase in the melee range. Yeah, so when the Heartwell demo first came out, I was having the thought process of, well, in the Souls games, fists have basically zero range. But as I thought about it more, and as I was seeing like the fact that even like the lowest melee ranged attack in the game for an enemy had more range than the fists, that being the rattlesnake attack, I'm like, okay, maybe we can make this a bit wider. I don't think that's going to like break the game in half and make fists suddenly like super overpowered just by giving it a bit more reach. I think it's more so just to make it feel. Yeah, and that was the other thing that I realized, like the more people kept bringing it up, I realized, wait a minute, in like Dark Souls 1, yeah, everyone has fists, but you never use them unless you're doing a challenge run. You always start with some kind of weapon. And in our case, the way Heartwell is, you know, fists are the starting weapon. So they should at least feel usable. Let's just say that. They shouldn't feel great, but they should definitely feel usable. So I think between that, the change to agility, between that and the changes to agility, I think that'll make fists a bit more viable, at least as a weapon as opposed to just an auxiliary. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to kind of encourage exploration of both the melee and the ranged weapons and how they interact. And I will say, the Arch guy, I found it very, very, I found what you decide to upgrade when you were doing your playthrough very interesting, because I'd actually, up to that point, never seen someone in a playthrough upgrade the attack speed buff for the rocks just by itself. Like, I've seen people do that like later when they get like lots more levels, but like as like the first thing you go for, I'm like, oh, you went for that. You want like a really, really more aggressive option. Like most people I see typically go for either shrapnel to get that massive damage buff, or they go for galvanizing gemstones in order to make use of the surge status effect. So I found that pretty cool, and it kind of showed like the different build variety, if you can even call it that, with rocks. Because I mean, when you think of ranged weapons, I think rocks is about as basic as you can possibly get, conceptually anyway. But yeah, I'm assuming the Arshadai you like basically having very fast. You like kind of in RPGs you like builds that are like more fast paced, more quick, give you more time to react, things like that. Because I know for me at least, I've generally preferred more slower builds. All right, fair enough. That's perfectly fine. Like I can respect that. Like it can be really exciting to be like moving quickly, being right in there on the action. I've always tended to be a more of a defensive player though. Yeah, not a fan of bonk builds, fair. I mean, I know when I first played Dark Souls 1, I went like full Havel set, used the big great shield, used like a heavy club of some kind. But after that, I generally tended to prefer using like bows or more kind of ranged options and trying to get a bit more evasive while still wearing heavier armor. So kind of a weird mix there. It's like I like being defensive, but I don't like being like a turtle. So it's more so like I see myself as I kind of like when I make a build, it's kind of a ranger patroller kind of thing, where you keep your distance, you try to take advantage of the fact that you are using a ranged weapon. So that gives you some, I guess, some punish windows in Souls games that you wouldn't otherwise have. But by the same token, at least in the Souls games, the ranged weapons tend to be inferior to their melee counterparts. So there's that balancing factor. But I've always liked the idea of like thinking a bit more tactically, thinking about, okay, if I could attack from a distance, how many more punish windows could I find? As opposed to being right up in the action and having to wait a bit more. Okay, so I think this section looks all good. Let's check this area. Now, I believe we checked line 786 before, but let's double check. Yep, okay, that line was checked. Oh, this might be new though. 814? You like being evasive? Well, that's excellent. Which, you know, based off that, I think you'll probably like the idea I have for reworking the agility stat, because speaking from experience in Souls games, like oftentimes in Souls games, stamina regeneration rates, there's only like a couple items in the game that boost them, and they're usually by very small percentages. And even then, those items tend to be top tier because just having faster stamina regeneration rate lets you just do more things in a shorter period of time. Whether that's more rolls, more melee attacks, things like that. And my thought is giving players like direct control over that as like a level up option would make it agility a lot more viable than it currently is. Since it not only acts as a buff to melee weapons, but it also would essentially accomplish the same thing as what agility currently does, just in a different way. That's more generally useful than rather specifically being towards those specific movement options. Now, I don't know what the increment will be yet for the new agility rework yet. That's something I have to think about. It's going to be, I guess the thought is the end state for stamina regeneration, if someone invested 100 agility, should probably be slightly higher stamina regen than what the maximum ammo regen would be if you found all the ancient cartridges. Now, that being said, those are some numbers I need to double check in my notes and run some calculations to make sure they don't get too ridiculous. Well, actually, I take it back. Part of the fun of Heartwell is the idea of starting with part of the fun of Heartwell is growth, like growing into your own kind of build. And the idea that whenever you hit something that's really challenging, you either take some time to train, really flesh out your build a bit, or take some time to practice it and what's stopping you and overcome any obstacles in your way. Okay, so I think line 814. Yeah, it's not there. Okay, so that's new. So we need this. Line 814. to, I think it'll be like 827 or 826. All right, so 814 of that. All right, looks like a lot of the same numbers are here, so that's actually good. That makes it a lot easier for us. Yeah. All right, 836, I know for a fact we've checked already. So we'll keep moving on with that. Let's see here. Oh, hello, Topper Nettelson. Thanks for dropping by. Welcome, welcome. Alrighty. Alright, welcome back everyone. The archer asked, was there anything I was mentioning earlier? No, I was mostly just talking to myself in deep in thoughts about the things that he adjusted. So we actually got very lucky here with lines 814 through 827, as these lines actually have similar adjustments to lines 813 above. So yeah, we're picking up from there. Oh, I will mention the Arch guy. You're asked. Yeah, I think you asked a question during your playthrough about like, hey, is there more to the demo than just like this one section I did? And the answer is yeah. Basically, I'd say 99% of the visible space in the demo is accessible. Like I can think of exactly one hallway, like one tiny hallway that's inaccessible, but everything else that you physically see there is accessible. So if you haven't like gone down a specific path and you see it off in the distance, you can probably go there. So just something to keep in mind. All right. So yeah, we got all this. Yeah, those. Okay, so I think, yeah, we've covered that button before. What about this button? All right, so random question for you, the Arch guy. Have you actually, did you see any of like the dev streams where I was drawing some of the attack animations for some of the weapons planned for later in the game? The archetype says, you're gonna go back and look for more stuff, but as soon as you hit the end, there was an end, are you sure you're done prompt, and I just went right to the next demo. That's the demo. Fair enough. So essentially the way so essentially the reason that was structured the way it was, the Arch guy, is because there's more than one way to actually leave the tutorial dungeon. So the way you, like, the door you took to end the tutorial dungeon, that's only one of the exits. So if it were the full game, that would take you to that would take you to obviously one of the 3 different major sections of of Eleftheria to truly begin your adventure, so to speak. All right, fair enough. I'm just thinking about, like, since you like very like sort of evasive or fast-paced weapons, I'm just thinking, like, okay, what kind of weapons might you be interested in? The ones that come to mind would be like some of the more quick throwable weapons, like the kunais, maybe the harpoons, the tower shells. Those are some quick throwable weapons. I think the crossbow will also have a pretty fast attack speed as well, at least for maybe a fast attack speed for a ranged weapon anyway. You saw there was a boomerang, but you didn't. Oh, no, that's not a boomerang, the Arch guy. That's tomahawks. So a tomahawk is basically a throwing axe. Yeah, a bit different from a boomerang, but still different. Yeah, so you have those weapons. As for melee weapons, there's a fair amount of weapons, like, I think there's a couple of different batons that are pretty quick. Like batons. I think there's a pick of some kind. I know there's a dagger. You might like one of the swords. And but if we want to really talk about speed, I think that would probably be the spear, because the spear is, if anyone who's played a Souls game knows that any kind of thrusting weapon like a spear or thrusting swords, they tend to have really fast attack speeds. Would I ever consider making the Roman numeral power upgrades incremental so I don't have huge power spikes? No. And the reason for that, hello Jay, thanks for dropping by, how's it going? I'll answer your question as up, Jay. So the reason for that is the idea behind the specials is delayed gratification. So on the one hand, it may feel like a power spike, but on the other hand, that is kind of the intent, because you are essentially deferring getting a benefit for 4 levels in order to get a really massive benefit by delaying that gratification. Because for those 4 levels, you could have invested them in damage, you could have invested them in more scaling, you could have invested them in something else that actually gives you a more direct, I want this benefit now. But the thought is, again, teaching the player delayed gratification, like having these really unique specials that are tailor-made for specific weapons, so that you have that payoff, like, yeah, I may have to really I won't be able to benefit from this right now in the long run, but that's okay, because in the long run, when I finish my investment, I will get a really, really big payoff. Jay asks, does Dorothy load the crossbow herself, or is the manifest load it, because they can have really heavy draw strength? And you're right about that, Jay, and as you probably guessed, when Dorothy manifests the crossbow, she's going to manifest it in an already loaded state, because think about it logically. If you have the ability to do that, why wouldn't you? Like, it saves you so much time and hassle. It would essentially be the equivalent of if Dorothy were carrying an already loaded crossbow, how quick would it be to just draw that and fire? Will Dorothy have any firearms, specifically like black powder? I'm not sure about black powder, but in terms of firearms, I mean, there are some weapons that would be like that. Like, I know the game has a railgun, So that's, you know, that's a potential more closer to a firearm weapon. And then there's various types of, I think there's various types of mortars. Love the idea of Dorothy being jacked. Fair enough. So, yeah, with regard to levels, you'll probably see that on the roadmap as well, the Archdie. Another thing I intend to do is make the basic enemies reward a lot more XP than they more XP than they currently do. And that's just to, again, reduce the initial grind time, because growing is a major part of Heartwell, but obviously in order to do that, enemies have to drop enough XP at base to be worth it. Now, granted, there are ways to earn more XP through the wisdom level system, but even so, it's like in order for that to snowball effectively, you need to have a good foundation of XP to gain. So that is something I'm considering. How much of an XP increase am I doing? I'm not sure yet. That's something I'll have to figure out. Try to run some calculations to determine what it should be. But it's definitely going to be more than it is right now. Now, Jay, you mentioned you like the idea of ending Dorothy being Dorothy. What? What do you mean Dorito? I'm confused. What is Dorito? Dorito? Oh no, Doritos. Dorothy Doritos. Yes. Yeah, obviously there's no way for me to draw a Jax Dorothy with how, you know, it's pixel art. There's not really much to go off of. But still, like, the idea is, like, if you want to make Dorothy super buff, like, give her, like, 80 plus strength, go for it. Why not? Make her literally one punch like the Snacks. There is a part of me that wants to add an achievement to the full game called One Punch Dorothy, which involves defeating a Cobra with a single fist attack, and the Cobra has to be at max health when you do the fist attack. Something like that, to truly embody the One Punch Dorothy idea. Okay, so I think these sections are okay. I know I've been staring at these for a while, chat, but that's because I want to be extra thorough. Dorothy canonically has an 8-pack. No. Listen, Godfrey Nicholson, there's a lore bit in the Heartwell demo that mentions that mentions that Dorothy, when she works out, she tends to like to read a lot in between workout sets. So she's I'd say she's reasonably fit, but she's not like super strong, especially not at the start of the game. The Archdie extensions. So regarding your build preferences in other games, your favorite build in Elden Ring is Cross Natty Nada with the Bloodhound step, and Cross Toad you run Momentum build with 2 extra dashes. Oh yeah, those are speed builds. Those are definitely speed builds. Those can be very fun. Become the speed. Yeah. So let's see, we got all this. Okie doke. Let's see, is there any adjustments here? Nope, that looks good. I think. Okay. Governmental says, I refuse to accept this. The only logical conclusion is that Dorothy has the muscle structure of Arnold Schwarzenegger or John Cena. No. The only way Dorothy would have that kind of muscle structure is if you literally, as a player, decide to give her like 100 strength and 100 like dexterity and endurance and stuff like that. Just like maximum Dorothy. Actually, imagine having 100 vitality, just all the heals, all the HP, tank everything. It's like the enemy fires like, I don't know, like a death laser or something, and Dorothy's just like, eh. Let's see. That's why you gave her the loose fitting dress so she can hide her muscles underneath the oversized fabric. No. Although, speaking of build preferences, Copper Nettelson, when it comes to, like, you know, Souls-like games, what kind of, what kind of build are you interested in trying? Jay says, Matt's Vitality Dorothy, puny god. No. Actually, no, I got a better one. Dorothy is facing... Imagine Dorothy is facing like a major boss, and the major boss fires like some kind of powerful laser, like some kind of big smash attack, and it's like there's dust everywhere. And but when it's all said and done, it's like it does like over 1,000 damage. But Dorothy's still standing there, and she says, "You're gonna have to try a little harder than that." Just no full Undyne from Undertale. Cue the Undyne music. Da 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 da. Oh, better yet. Imagine the boss attacks Dorothy, and then the boss health bar appears, but Dorothy's health bar is the one. All this for a drop of blood. No. That's basically like playing any Souls games at Matt's Vitality. Yeah, I mean, if you really think about, like, with the rate at which you can earn Vitality in Heartwell, like, if you put in 100 Vitality, you'd have 2,500 HP. That's a lot of HP. Like, there are many hits that can be taken with that. And also, at 100 Vitality, you'd also have much better, do we have line 870? We'd have much better healing charges as well at that point, so it all kind of stacks up. Oh, yeah, that one's there. Dorothy Smash. I mean, there is a hammer. I can guarantee there's at least one hammer weapon. They even call it the Hammer of Storms, so if you really want to smash something, Hammer of Storms would be probably one of the things you'd consider. Alright. Yeah, honestly, with the range stat buttons, besides this, I think we lucked out. I think a lot of the things that need to be adjusted are already adjusted with the melee stat buttons. Now, to be fair, we still have to double check changes for the range stat buttons too, but I get the distinct feeling we might end up in the same situation where it's like, yeah, we kind of already checked everything, and then we move on to the next item. But again, doing our due diligence here. All right, chat, I think this will actually be a good spot for us to take our first break, so don't worry, guys. I will be right back. All right, chat. Welcome back, everyone. Oh, sounds good, Jay. Thank you for dropping by. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Copper Nicholson asks, so what were you asking about Elden Ring? Oh, I was just asking, like, what kind of builds do you like to create? So, like, character builds, if you will, in a game like Elden Ring, Dark Souls, things like that. Because that might tell me, like, what kinds of weapons you might gravitate towards in Heartwell. For example, the Arch guy mentioned liking really fast-paced weapons, so that made me think of, like, the various weapons that can attack really fast. Because those would be complementary to that kind of playstyle. Okay, so we're just gonna double check this one. All right, we've identified that. Not seeing any surprises here. All right. Oh, so you're saying you want to not level anything up at all, Copper Nicholson? In other words, you want to do a true, like, I guess that would be a Dorothy level 0 run? Yeah. Yarsha says, there are any option about the lore bets? Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, the Arch guy. The thing about lore bets, though, is they don't actually stop you from playing the game. Like, I know it's standard in RPGs where it's like if you see like a dialogue box pop up, that takes away control from you. But with lore bits, they actually don't. So if I'm like pulling up a lore bit, I can still run around, I can still attack, I can still do stuff like that. The only thing that's there is obviously the actual text spots up there. Correct. So if you want to test it out, you can just, if you find a lore bit, instead of... I know it can be a little bit confusing, but lore bits actually don't, like, fully stop your movement or anything like that. All they do is they pop the text spots up. But in actuality, they're not forcing you to stop. If you're wondering, like, why you stop for certain things, like, it's obviously don't stop if you're talking to a character. Like, okay, you're talking to a character, but if it's just Dorothy talking to herself, that doesn't stop you from moving, doesn't stop you from attacking, doesn't do anything like that. Yeah, so really, like, the only... Yeah, that is true that you still have to press a button to rearrest the text, but that button is not like any of the buttons that's actually necessary for combat. The button's E. So it's not like it's taking away your ability to walk, or to sprint, or to jump, or to dash, or anything like that. Okay, so we've done those lines. So, if I'm understanding this right, the Arch guy, it sounds to me like you're almost saying, like, wouldn't it be nicer if instead of having to press a button to progress the lore, you instead have it essentially set to auto? Like how some visual novels give you that option, so like instead of you, the player, have to manually go each text spots, you'd instead be like, okay, I want the auto set to, I don't know, fast. and then it would just quickly move to the next dialog box automatically without the player actually having to input anything. Oh, well, Copper Nicholson, if you've read the roadmap, I intend to fully add some kind of logbook that would include all that. So have a way to review it at your leisure. That's true, but it still makes it seem like the text is the main focus. If the text moved to a corner of the screen and progressed automatically, that would convey that you're expected to keep playing during the dialogue. Let's see. Perhaps, but at the same time, that's the player purposely not trying to move or things just because of stylistic reasons. Also, like with the the crosscode system, obviously when they move their portraits to the bottom left, they still have a portrait of some kind. I'm actually quite limited in terms of what I'd be able to draw like that, so if I had to move text around, it would essentially just be the text itself and not like with a character portrait. Yeah, I guess the other thing that Sincere is like, if it's an automatic text progression, you know, some people are really, really slow readers and might not be as big of a fan of that. Because like with text progression speed, that's something that's not one size fits all, at least in my experience. I mean, I can understand why one would think that, because they've, you know, you start with the... I can understand why someone might think that, just because, you know, the opening cutscene, you're seeing that same dialogue box as you're, you know, in a state where you're not allowed to move around. So subconsciously, one might think, oh, I see this, I can't move around. Yeah, but that's also, you know, having the lore bits being a part of the world was, you know, making it so that you could keep moving if you so chose was something I intentionally designed the system around. Because I didn't want the lore bits to slow people down too much if they didn't want to. Like, obviously, if someone wants to stop and read, go for it. Let's see here. I think that's comes down to personal preference, the Irish guy. But yeah, I think, let's see, I think programming just the ability to essentially have the dialogue by itself in a corner somewhere probably wouldn't be that difficult to pull off, I don't think. It would be some extra code and an extra option, but just the text by itself probably wouldn't be that bad. I probably would need to come up with some kind of text that's outlined, though. Just so it's a bit more readable without a background. Okay, yeah. Alright, I'm just thinking out loud here, chat. There's the text plot in the middle screen. It gets in the way of gameplay, so people won't want to play before reading the dialogue anyway. All right, 870, we've done line 870. Yeah, that begs the question though. If the dialogue's automated and moved in the bottom left of the screen, wouldn't that make you potentially less inclined to read the dialogue? All right, that's fair. I mean, I guess everyone has different stylistic preferences. Fair enough. Okay, well, I think these buttons are all good. So now I'm going on to the bars. Alrighty. Let's see here. Changes for melee. I think this is the melee bar. Yeah, melee bar 1. You feel less motivated to read. Okay. This is interesting, the art stretch. I guess this kind of is more reflective of like our different gameplay style. So I know me personally, I tend to take things a bit slower, more methodically. So for me, stopping to read something doesn't feel too bad. But, you know, for a player who likes to be a bit faster, more on moving on their feet, you know, having to stop and read something can feel a bit more jarring because it's kind of asynchronous with how you're playing the game otherwise. Yeah, it's definitely a preference thing. Okay. I might consider amending the change so that it's more of a passive thing and not like hiding the dialogue completely. But it's something I can't guarantee, at least at this point in time, just because, again, I'd have to see what the programming would be involved with that and how the text would look. Because if you think of like how text is displayed, especially with how, you know, different and varied the backgrounds can be in Heartwell, you'd want it to be displayed in a way where it's not getting in the way, but it's also actually readable against all the different backgrounds. Because if you ever try to put like outline text over like a very background, depending on what it is, it can be kind of hard to read. Especially without like some kind of box behind it. So something I'd have to play around with. So I put that in more like the ideas being considered but not necessarily implemented. And it would just be something I'd have to test around with to see how it will work. But I appreciate the feedback. Let's see here. Changes for melee bar 1. Okay, this one definitely has some adjustments that needs to be made. Line 2. Line 2. There are such and some lines of code for the melee bar object. However they may. The melee bar object. Melee bar 1. Yeah. Something with the log though is one of the goals of the log would be to record what is said in the lore bit by Dorothy, just so that a player can refer back to it later. But I guess another part of the log is it's all going to depend on what the UI ends up looking at, like, and how much space I end up having to work with. But if there's space for it, the log could be a place to not only review what Dorothy said, but also to perhaps read a little bit extra. but because it, if it's designed in such a way where it's like verbatim, keeping track of what Dorothy said, that means even if the lore isn't displayed specifically by Dorothy saying it, it's still somewhere. Line 2, the code for the melee bar objects, melee bar 1. But I guess it's also a fair point to say that Heartwell is a story-heavy game, and essentially trying to hide the lore is probably not the best option. So that kind of goes against the whole, a major pillar of the game. Melee bar 1, melee bar 2. That's where Y coordinates need to be adjusted. Okay. So we have 239, 132. Two. Godfrey Nicholson, I refuse to make Dorothy a silent protagonist. Like, I have played many games where there are silent protagonists. I mean, you know, some of my favorite games of all time have a silent protagonist, like Shining Force, for example. In Shining Force 1, the protagonist doesn't say anything until like the very end of the game. But Dorothy, no. Dorothy is her own character. Obviously, the player has the ability to make choices throughout the game, but Dorothy is still a person. She's not just basically a blank slate for the player. Then is there at least a way to skip through the dialogue? You know, just press the E button very quick, and that's like skipping a cutscene. So the problem is that, again, Heartwell has choices. So if you skip the cutscene that involve choices, then that means you are skipping making a choice. Now, something that has been brought up before is that there are games where you can essentially fast forward through dialogue that you've already seen and have it just stop at a choice that matters. But that's more, at this point, that's more of like I consider that more of a stretch goal at this point, something that would have to be worked on later. And going from there. Like, at least at this point in time, Copper Nicholson, I do not intend to allow people to skip making the choices, because the choices are a key part of the game. So until that's not true, Copper Nicholson. The story is not going to be the same. A lot of games also have the player character say like one or two things about something, and then a little new journal entry pops up. That is true. So the thought with the log, at least, is once the log's created, like every time you finish a lore bit, instead of simply saying wisdom at speed earned, I'd probably also say something like new journal entry added or something like that, or new log entry added, and that way to indicate like, okay, there's something new in the manifest to read if you're so inclined. Because I know what you're talking about. Like, if I played Knights of the Old Republic, I like the little icon that pops up whenever that would happen. Copper Nicholson, a character can be a distinctive person, but still allow the player to make choices. I mean, like all the Telltale games, Copper Nicholson, allow the player to make choices even though you have characters that have specific personalities. It's not a fundamentally difficult concept. You are making a lot of assumptions, Copper Nicholson. Right, so 239, 152. Change 152 to 107. That is correct, the Arch Guide. The demo has 2 bosses, so I believe you've only fought Matt Smith, so there is another boss. All right. Should you fight it or wait for an update? I mean, you're still welcome to fight it. Like, I think fundamentally the boss is going to be fairly similar. You know, compared to what it would be if, you know, in a future update. Like, the only thing I think of, at least right now, that might change is maybe it would get more health depending on what the new XP rates are, but that's about it. Yeah, especially since you know you have some upgrades now, you might find the fight a bit more enjoyable than if you're just trying to do a level 0 battle. Okay. Alrighty, that's all there. Yeah, so it looks like we have a lot of values here that need adjustments. Okay. Okay. Now that's our Y coordinates that need to be adjusted. Makes a change, 243 to 163. Change 88. To 43. Three to 363, 173, 93, change 228. 183. Joke. $230. 230 to 150. 243, 158. Page 158 to 113. Three 35, 158. Five, 2. Sorry if I'm talking to myself right now, chat. I'm just in the zone right now, grabbing, identifying the numbers we need. Wait, is that a? That's an X coordinate. Wrong spot. That's an A. I'm not sure what you mean by a Mary Sue, Copper Nicholson. Dorothy, like when I think of a Mary Sue, I think of someone who can do no wrong and basically is good at everything. Dorothy is not that. Like, Dorothy does have character flaws. Jeez. And she literally starts the game like super duper weak. And I'm not sure what you mean by that, Copper Nicholson. I really don't understand where you're coming from, dude. Nine, 423, 426, 19. Oh. How does that make any sense? How did it be 19? Oh, because that's the starting position, right? I think. Is there anything you want me to clarify about any of the feedback I did and things you'd like my opinion on? Well, I'd say if there's if you have any other thoughts about what's listed in the roadmap, feel free to share them. Beyond that, though, I think you gave some pretty good feedback, and I appreciate everything you mentioned in the arch guide. I think, like I was mentioning in my post before, the biggest piece of feedback you gave that was the most eye-opening was about the visibility for walls versus floor tiles and just the general elevation. I ultimately was trying to fix that from crosscode, as I remember that being a problem there too. But there's definitely room for improvement with yeah. And honestly, I consider it an opportunity, because if you think about it, if I follow a rule of either having deliberately different designs for different elevations or deliberately different colors, it's just gonna make the game look a lot more visually interesting. So that's a plus too. And I'll fully admit I am not the best artist. I'm sure the pixel graphics in Heartwell will show that, but I'm at least willing to, give it my best attempt, so to speak. I'm never going to be able. I don't think I'll ever be able to draw at the level, the beautiful pixel art you see in names like Crosscode. But we can at least make things a bit more colorful and make the game stand out in its genre a bit more. Okay, so 335, 423, 423. Okay. All right, we changed 423 already, so 426 and 19. Okay. It's part of her character, Copper Nicholson. If you see Dorothy behaving a certain way, it's just as part of her character. Let's change 19 to... I'm really not sure what you're getting at, Copper Nicholson. What do you mean by preachy? If you mean that she's a character that has a strong moral conviction, that's just her character, dude. If you prefer different kinds of characters, that's not Dorothy. That's just not who Dorothy is. Change 333 to 253. Yep. Okay. It's 33 to negative 12. $313, $299. Okay. 233. Wait. No, these are Y coordinates. They're Y coordinates. Why did I put? Okay, we need Y coordinates. We have 8, 268. Is that what adds up? Yeah, that's up. Okay. Change 299. Well, fortunately for you, Copper Nicholson, I can't think of a single instance in Heartwell, well, at least not in the demo, where Dorothy does something like that. Like, she does mention about how to behave in certain instances, but it's not like talking down to someone. Sounds to me like you're seeing something that reminds it. You'd have to, well, then you'd have to specifically point it out. Just I can't think of anything. I'm the person who wrote the story. All right, but what line specifically, Copper Nicholson? Because there's some pretty extensive conversations after defeating the bosses. $2.99. That's 45. No, that's not the kind of game Heartwell is, Copper Nicholson. But if you're talking about the kind of choices you had more like in the opening cutscene, those kinds of choices might be more applicable in some other scenes, but they aren't applicable in those scenes. Well, Copper Nicholson, you've only seen the demo. You haven't seen how some of the choices impact the game, because you can't, because the game's still physically being built. Anyway, that's that section done. What's the point of putting story choices in the demo if they don't actually do anything in the demo? Because they'll do stuff. Because if I'm trying to basically build the demo from the ground up as a key part of the game, I would put choices in the demo that I intend to have utilized in the full game, because I'm still building the game. So it's giving you a taste of what the game's like, and making those choices is part of the game. Okay, so we checked that section. We checked line 396 before. I don't think anything popped up there. I know for certain we've looked at lines 877 through that, so that's... Yep, all the bars are checked. Next up is the special effects UI. Right there. And add some story paths to the demo. Well, Copper Nicholson, there already is one, and it's actually not one that requires a dialogue option. it requires the choice of the player themselves to choose how to leave the tutorial dungeon. Like, that's a choice. Those 3 exits aren't arbitrary. They take you to completely different parts of Eleftheria. That's a choice. It almost feels, Copper Nicholson, like right now you're trying to nitpick to nitpick. And I understand that if you're having a rough week, like, I can understand that. But that's not there. Alright, well, Copper Nicholson, if you want to just talk yourself in circles like that, you know, go for it. But that's not... I'm just gonna focus on developing. Like, these choices do matter. It's just how those choices matter will be more apparent in the full game. Alrighty, and with that, I think up next. Well, let's for that section. Remember, Copper Nicholson, you've only played the demo. The demo is a small taste of the game. It's not meant to be a full game yet, because I still am developing the full game. And weapon special stats 1, 2. Okay. Weapon special stats 1, 2. I think we've covered line 415 already. Let's double check. Yep, we covered it. Okay. Yeah. Hello, VC7. Welcome back. VC7 says, you think we'd have to have patience to fully experience the rest of the game before picking at the story and making assumptions? That's fair. That's fair, because again, it's like... It would essentially be like trying to judge a book by only reading the first chapter. Like, when a book has a bunch of chapters, it's like... You can only glean so much from that one chapter. Like, you get a sense of what the book's like and what the story's like, but you're not going to have a sense of, like, the full scope of it. Let's see here, in line 2. Does line 419 have anything? Let's find out. All right. Wow, these objects are even simpler than the other ones. That's good. Well, my response to that, Copper Nicholson, is check out the full game when it's released. Then you'll really get to see how everything is how everything's all connected. Okay. Weapon selection panels. All right. Not sure what you mean by that, Copper Nicholson. Well, then, you know, maybe the story just isn't your cup of tea. That's always a possibility. But I can guarantee you that Dorothy is not bland. But perhaps it's not. But perhaps Dorothy, as a character, the type of character they are, just isn't a type of character you're particularly interested in. All right. No, Copper Nicholson. I think, once again, I think this is kind of your own biases kicking in here. Am I going to be biased into my own creation? Of course I am. I'm the creator. But I can tell you that Dorothy isn't bland because, as far as... That is not true at all, Copper Nicholson. There are plenty of creators that despise their own creations. But Dorothy being bland, like, bland to me as a character means a character with no depth, a character with really no story at all, a character that is exactly skin deep. Dorothy is not skin deep. All right. Let's see here. So you got all these buttons. Okay. Are those coordinates? No, those aren't coordinates. I feel like there must be coordinates here somewhere. Actually, no, I just thought it'd be with the mouse checks as opposed to the button checks. We've already gone over the mouse checks. So they were complicated. Alright, so if these are display checks, then that's all fine and dandy. These are all animation sequences and directions, so that's all good. Okay, so I think... yeah, beyond that, this one actually doesn't have any adjustments. Same thing, I think, with this? Yeah, all the actual location adjustments are done with, that. With this. Nope, okay. Well, so it seems like the weapon selection panels are actually being a lot easier. That's good. Well, chat, I got some good news here. So looks like the weapon selection panels actually don't have... oh dear. Yeah, so looking like the weapon selection panels don't have very many coordinate checks, and the coordinate checks that are there are things we actually already identified previously. So we can actually knock that off our list right away. It's through weapon selections panel 3 object action. Let's go from there. Copper Nicholson asked, "Can I tell you how choices matter?" My response is, my response is very simply, does an author or her give spoilers to a book when they provide excerpts? The answer is no. You'll find out in the full game. Okay, so that's that position. Very good. Right. Note, these objects did not include any to the changes listed above. Alrighty, so if we had all that stuff there, it's for stat weapons, selection panel objects, very good. Right, we've identified all of those. I think we have? Did we? I feel like we did. Yeah, we did. My bad. Speed strain, etc. $877 through $879. We've already done those, we've done those, we've done those, we've done those. Wait, did I add something? Well, if I added something I did not intend to, so we'll just exit out without saving. Alright, that doesn't involve coordinates. Oh, that's different. Hold on. What over here? Have I identified 773 already? Uh-oh. We have not. 772? Okay, so we did. It's part of there. $766. Okay, looks like we have some more. Yeah, I think a lot to pick up with this net stream chat. Let's see here. All right, I think we're on manifest help bot string. Okay. Manifest help bot string object. Okay. Note the previous areas of code. Action. Is for manifest help bot string objects. I'll say continue reviewing line 746 for the manifest help bot object. Anything from here in 2 weeks, which is the 4th of April. See note above. All right, so now chat, I know what you're probably thinking, like, Antomicx, we've been doing this for a while. Is there any end in sight? Yes, there is actually, because as you can see, we're getting towards the end of the strings here. Once we're done with this, the only other thing to check would be the Heartwell depths, because that frame has the bosses, and the boss dialogue might have some unique things we need to consider. I'm also going to adjust the HUD for the boss health bar now I think about it. It's not to be shortened. Anyway. But those are our thoughts for the future. So if you're watching on Twitch, feel free to stick around for raid. If you're watching on YouTube and like what we saw, please consider subscribing on YouTube. If you're subscribing on YouTube, don't let change your mind later. That's a great way to show support. If you're watching on YouTube, have an amazing night.